It was supposed to be just another panel. A simple legal discussion filmed in front of a live audience, nothing more. But somewhere between the introductions and the final round of questions, something shifted. The crowd didn't see it coming. Neither did the cameras. And if you looked closely at the faces in the front row, there was a moment, just a flicker, where everyone paused, like they'd forgotten to breathe. Because one of America's sharpest, most seasoned legal minds was about to be surprised, and not by a judge, a scholar, or a senior lawyer, but by someone many had quietly written off before she even opened her mouth. The event was held at the Winspear Opera House in Dallas, Texas. Clean lights, polished wood, rows of velvet seats, the kind of place where silence feels heavy, and every whisper sounds like a secret. The panel was part of a televised series called Law, Order, and the Constitution Today. Big title, big expectations. People in the audience included law students, journalists, even a few politicians. Cameras were already rolling when the guests took their seats. The air felt tight. Even before anyone spoke. At the center of it all was Judge Judy Shindlin, a name that needs no long introduction. Fierce, no nonsense, and always ready to call it like she sees it. For decades, she ruled daytime TV with quick decisions and an even quicker tongue. Her presence alone could freeze a room. People didn't just listen to her. They expected her to lead, to dominate, to be the smartest person on any stage. And most of the time, she was. Sitting just a few seats away was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Younger, quieter, and without the celebrity glow. Dressed simply, hands folded, eyes calm. She wasn't there to perform. She wasn't even there to impress. A former public defender turned lawmaker, Jasmine brought with her years of courtroom experience. The kind that doesn't make headlines, but changes lives. Still, in a room like this, she wasn't expected to shine. Most people saw her as the new voice, the polite presence, the one who would nod along while others led the conversation. And at first, that's exactly how it went. The moderator welcomed the panel. Small talk floated through the air. Light, easy, harmless. Then came the first real question. A topic about justice reform. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, turning to Jasmine with a look that felt more like a test than a conversation. The question she asked was pointed, even sharp. The kind that draws polite laughs from a crowd and pressure from the person being asked. For a second, it seemed like Jasmine might stumble, but she didn't. She answered calmly, clearly, no papers, no hesitation, just truth, direct and firm. The audience shifted in their seats. Some looked at each other. Someone in the third row pulled out a phone to start filming, and Judge Judy. She didn't respond right away, because something had just changed. No one knew it yet. But a power shift had begun, quietly, respectfully. And absolutely. Jasmine didn't pause when Judge Judy asked for specifics. No stumble, no glance to notes. Just a smooth shift in posture, and a quiet answer. United States v. Jones, 565 U. 412. Her voice was steady, clear. She spoke the citation like someone who had carried it in her back pocket for years, not for show, but because it mattered. You could feel the air thicken in the room. Even Judge Judy blinked, just once. She hadn't expected a citation like that, not with volume and page number, not from someone who hadn't been introduced as a legal scholar. Jasmine went on. She explained how the government had placed a GPS tracker on a suspect's car without a proper warrant. They tracked him for 28 days, watching his every move. She broke down how the Supreme Court ruled that it was an illegal search, a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. She explained what that amendment protects, not in abstract terms, but in plain language. It's not just about a tracker, she said. It's about reminding law enforcement that no tool, no shortcut, can step over a person's rights. Now, people were sitting straighter, phones lifted quietly. A law student near the back whispered to the girl beside him. She came ready. On screen, it looked clean and sharp. A woman calmly dismantling a challenge, piece by piece, in front of a national audience. Judy didn't jump back in, not right away. Her usual sharpness gave way to something tighter. She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them. When she finally spoke again, her tone was lower. Less like a challenge, more like a real question. And you believe this decision changed how people are treated on the ground? Jasmine didn't miss a beat. No, she said. Not yet. Because rulings don't mean much if people don't even know they have rights. If you don't know, you can say no, or ask for a lawyer, or stay silent. Then how can a Supreme Court decision protect you? Then she told another story. This one didn't come from case law or headlines. It came from a man she represented. In Texarkana, pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer claimed to smell marijuana. They searched the car. Found nothing. But the man missed 3 days of work waiting in jail for charges that never came. He didn't make rent that month. His kids ate noodles for 2 weeks. Jasmine's voice didn't rise. She didn't add drama. That's not in court transcripts, she said, but it's real. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. Her fingers tapped once against her armrest. Have you ever stood in a courtroom, she asked slowly, and faced a jury that already decided your client was guilty before you even opened your mouth? Jasmine gave a small nod. Yes, she said. Plenty of times. Then she told the story that made the room go still. A young man in Garland had been charged with armed robbery. He had face tattoos. He wore second-hand clothes. The jury didn't like him before they even heard the facts. The public defender before her had barely spoken to him. When Jasmine took over, the case had already started. The evidence seemed weak, but the assumptions were strong. No one had noticed that the height of the man in the surveillance video didn't match the client. No one cared that the only witness was cutting a deal in another case. So Jasmine stood, alone. No co-counsel, just her and the truth. She walked the jury through every second of the footage. Showed how shadows can change the way a body looks. Questioned the arresting officer until he admitted he never checked the alibi the kid gave him. And when the verdict came back not guilty, the jurors didn't look her in the eye. But her client cried, not because he was free, but because someone had finally believed him. A law professor, sitting near the back, leaned toward his student and whispered, "She's not performing. She's testifying." By now, the audience wasn't just watching. They were with her. Fully. Even Judge Judy was quiet. No interruptions. No clever remarks. Just watching. Then came Judy's last move. The one she'd used on plenty of panels before. She straightened her jacket, lifted her chin slightly, and asked, "But do you think passion ever gets in the way of the law? Does it make things messy?" Jasmine sat forward, gently resting her hands on the table. "Truth comes with emotion," she said. "Law isn't supposed to be numb. It's supposed to be human." The room didn't erupt. No standing ovation, just stillness. Heavy. Real. Earned. Judge Judy didn't push back. She looked at Jasmine, really looked at her, then gave a small nod. Not the kind you give when you agree. The kind you give when you understand someone's earned their place at the table. "You've earned your seat," she said quietly. And that was it. No dramatic finish. No one yelling. Just a woman who showed up calm, prepared, and unwilling to flinch. And another who finally saw that. Jasmine didn't hesitate. When Judge Judy leaned in and asked her to name a case that truly backed up her arguments, something clear, legal, and serious, Jasmine sat up, adjusted her mic slightly, and said calmly, "United States v. Jones. 565 U.S. 400 2012. She didn't fumble. She didn't need to think. The words came like she had rehearsed them 1,000 times, even though she hadn't. She didn't need notes. She carried the case with her, not on paper, but in memory because it meant something. She explained the case. Not like a professor, but like someone telling a story that mattered. "In Jones," she said, "the government installed a GPS tracker on a man's car without a warrant. They tracked him for almost a month. They thought they had every right. But the Supreme Court said no. That was an illegal search." That case reminded the justice system that privacy still matters even when it's convenient to ignore. "The Constitution isn't just old paper," she said. "It's a promise. And you don't get to break it just because someone looks suspicious." The audience leaned in. Phones were up now, recording quietly. Someone live-streamed it from the third row. A few heads turned when one of the students whispered, "She came ready." This wasn't just a good answer. It was a moment, tight, sharp, unexpected. You could feel it happening in real time. Judge Judy didn't cut in like before. Her lips tightened, her eyes stayed locked on Jasmine. But something had changed. She was listening now, not waiting to speak. Her body language shifted. She stopped pressing forward. Her arms came in closer. The hard edge in her voice softened. When she spoke again, it wasn't a challenge. It was a real question. "So you think a case like Jones applies to what happens every day in courtrooms?" Jasmine didn't miss a beat. "It should," she said. "But it doesn't." She leaned forward slightly. "Because a ruling only protects people when someone is there to explain it. I've had clients who didn't know they had the right to say no. They didn't know a search without a warrant could be illegal. And when no one tells you your rights, The law doesn't protect you, it controls you. Then she told a story. A man she represented in Texarkana pulled over for a busted taillight. The officer claimed to smell marijuana. That was enough to tear the car apart. They found nothing, but he spent 2 nights in jail anyway. Missed 3 days of work. Missed rent. His kids ate noodles for almost a week. No charges were filed. No apology. You won't find that story in the court records, Jasmine said. But it happened. And it happens a lot. Judge Judy crossed her legs, her mouth opened, then closed again. She shifted in her seat. Then she tried a different approach. One that had worked before. A personal test. Have you ever stood in front of a jury? She asked, knowing they already decided your client was guilty just by looking at him. Jasmine nodded once. She didn't need time to think. Yes, she said. More than once. Then came another story. A young man in Garland, face tattoos, worn-out clothes, accused of armed robbery. The jury had made up their minds before the trial even started. Jasmine got the case after another public defender had dropped it. By the time she walked in, the damage was done. The footage they had didn't even match his height. The eyewitness was someone trying to cut a deal in another case. No one cared. But Jasmine didn't let it slide. She stood there alone. No co-counsel, just her and the evidence. She walked the jury through every second of the video, showed them how the shadows made the figure look taller, showed how the officer never checked the alibi, cross-examined until the holes became too big to ignore. When the verdict came back not guilty, the courtroom didn't cheer. The jury didn't even look at her. But her client cried. Not because he was free, but because someone had finally believed him. By now the audience wasn't just watching. They were feeling it. One law professor near the back leaned over to a student and said, barely above a whisper, "She's not performing. She's testifying." The energy had shifted completely. People weren't there for a panel anymore. They were there for a moment that was bigger than the room. Judge Judy knew it too. You could see it in her body, no longer sharp, no longer ready to pounce. She was calculating, not just reacting. Her voice was lower now when she spoke again. "But the courtroom isn't therapy," she said. "It's not a place for emotion." Jasmine gave the faintest smile. Not smug, just clear. "Truth comes with emotion," she replied. "Law isn't supposed to be numb. It's supposed to be human." That line hung in the air like smoke. The room didn't explode. No one clapped just yet, but everyone felt it. Judge Judy looked at Jasmine. For a long second, she didn't speak. Then she gave a small, almost invisible nod. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't defeat. It was recognition. "You've earned your seat," she said quietly. And that was it. No speeches. No headline moment. Just one woman who stood firm in what she knew, and another who, after testing her, finally understood what that meant. By the time the panel ended and the stage lights dimmed, something bigger had already begun outside the room. Clips of Jasmine Crockett's.com/steady takedown of the legal challenge started spreading online before the final round of questions had even finished. The moment she quoted United States v. Jones, phones were already recording. But it wasn't just the facts she shared, or the stories she told. It was the way she said them. Clear, measured, no shouting, no grandstanding. Just the truth, laid out so simply that it was impossible to ignore. Within hours, Jasmine's name was trending on every platform. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, they all had their versions. Some clips focused on her breaking down constitutional law without a single note. Others highlighted her quiet retelling of courtroom stories that rarely make headlines. One quote, though, was everywhere. People reposted it, printed it, stitched it into TikToks. "Legal decisions don't change lives unless someone stands in that courtroom and says this is what the Constitution promises." While the internet buzzed, Jasmine didn't post anything. She didn't hold a press conference or give a round of interviews. The next morning, while news outlets were scrambling to find clips of her earlier speeches, Jasmine was sitting in a folding chair at a small town hall in Duncanville, Texas. No stage, no spotlight, just her, a dry erase board, and a room full of regular people with questions about school zoning, rental assistance, and traffic light cameras. She answered everyone. No mention of Judge Judy. No talk of going viral. Just the work, the way she'd always done it. But the ripple effect was real. Her office inbox exploded with emails, not just from Texas, but from across the country. A civil rights lawyer in Minnesota wrote, "You said what I've felt for 20 years, but never had the room to say out loud." A high school senior from Omaha said, I didn't think I could ever understand law. You made it feel possible. Professors built her panel answers into classroom discussions. Legal aid groups began using her lines in outreach posters. Something in her clarity had opened a door for people who had never seen themselves reflected in that world before. Then, quietly, Judge Judy spoke. Not on a big stage. Not in a follow-up panel. Just during a short phone interview with a local radio host in San Diego. When asked about the moment that had taken over social media, she didn't deny it, deflect it, or try to take it back. Her voice was firm, but softer than usual. She didn't flinch. She said, "I respect that." That was it. Not a full endorsement. Not praise. But real. And for someone like Judy, who had made a career of never backing down, those 5 words carried weight. About a week later, something else showed up. Jasmine found it in her stack of mail. A plain envelope with no return address. No fancy letterhead. Inside was a single sheet of cream-colored paper. The handwriting was neat, careful, the kind that doesn't rush. The note was short. "Congresswoman, that was one of the sharpest courtroom arguments I've seen outside of a bench. You were clear, prepared, and correct. Don't waste time proving yourself to people who've already made up their minds. Keep showing up anyway. The law needs more voices like yours." J.S. There was no need for a signature. She knew who it was. Jasmine folded the letter slowly, almost carefully, and slid it into the back of her binder, right behind her. Printed copy of Jones v. United States. The same case she had carried into workshops and community meetings. The same one that had once felt like just words on paper, until she learned how to make it speak. She didn't frame the letter. She didn't take a photo. She just kept doing what she always did. Returning calls from constituents. Prepping for committee meetings. Pulling on boots for Saturday cleanups in South Dallas. Because that's where the work lived. Not in trending hashtags, but in steady effort. Not in moments, but in repetition. The story didn't end with applause. It didn't need to. Because for Jasmine Crockett, the point had never been to win. The room it was to change how the room saw people like her. And she did it without raising her voice. Moments fade, but consistency doesn't. That's where truth lives. And that's where Jasmine stays.